This is Cuiabá, a city of 500,000 people and the capital of Brazil's new agricultural heartland. It is also the beginning of the most controversial road in Brazil, the BR-163. The Brazilian dictatorship built this road in the 1970s. Their intention was to populate the rainforest and exploit its resources under the slogan "Land without people for people without land," ignoring the tens of thousands of indigenous Indians who were there already. But the road was never finished, and now, 30 years after it was started, President Lula has promised to finish the job. I've been on the bus for about 6 hours. We're now 250 miles north of Cuiabá. About 30 years ago, this is where the Amazon rainforest would have started. Although there isn't any rainforest here anymore. You can see there's just acres and acres of farmland, maize, and especially soya. The soya boom has consolidated Brazil as an agricultural superpower. But the farmers live with huge logistical problems. Only the first 450 miles of the road is paved, so at present, the crops have to take a huge detour to get to their markets. Which is why soya farmers like Nelson Piccoli are campaigning for the road to be paved all the way to the Amazon River.
Que o Porto de Santarém é a saída mais viável para.
The port of Santarém is the most viable exit for what we produce here. We're going to be adding to the value of what we produce between 5 to 6 reais a bag, and also everything we need to produce, everything we need to plant the soya. Most of it is imported, and that will also be cheaper.
The
rapid growth of soya in this region, half of which is exported to the EU, has been blamed as a principal cause of recent deforestation of the Amazon.
Here we are being blamed by the whole world, even by our own government, who instead of defending us, instead of saying we generate wealth, blame us as destroyers. We did not destroy this region. We transformed it to agricultural production. What you are seeing here is how we are supporting the human race. You cannot survive without eating food.
Soya may be feeding the world, but at a high cost to the environment. Where there are farms, industry and towns soon follow. 200 miles further north is Guarantã do Norte, a town first settled by wildcat gold miners. The gold rush is long over, but like contestants in Scrap Heap Challenge, locals have found another use for the mining pumps left behind. Guarantã has the last office of Brazil's Environmental Protection Agency for 400 miles. Marcio da Costa and his 4 staff are the frontline soldiers protecting the rainforest against illegal logging. It's a dangerous job.
Once I was taking part in an operation and a lorry tried to run me over. I had to jump out the way, but we managed to catch him.
Marcio shows me on a satellite map how development has in the past brought devastation.
With the paving, the tendency is that you will have more deforestation. It opens the possibility of new side roads being opened up, and deforestation will move into the more preserved areas.
These new side roads can be clearly seen from satellite imagery, where they have a distinctive fishbone pattern. Marcio's challenges are a lack of money and staff, an immense area to protect, but he says the biggest problem is one of attitude.
The people who came here came to conquer and destroy the land. The economy here is based on wood and gold. The cultural thing is very strong and needs to be ended.
Marcio has managed to find an unlikely ally in saving the rainforest, the timber industry. He took me to a local sawmill where he has persuaded the owner to replant the forest he has cut down with native species.
In the rainy season, we grew 40,000 saplings and planted them. This is still the exception. But if the local businessmen want to have continuity, then they need to come round to this way of thinking.
Marcio is the last environmental chief for 400 miles, just where the forest needs him most.
This is where the asphalt ends, right there. Now it's hundreds and hundreds of miles of dirt track to just before Santarém.
But even a dirt track is enough to attract Brazilians to live along it, each one dreaming of a piece of land to call their own. Tens of thousands live here, where they are able to raise cattle, farm and cut down trees, away from the eyes of the state. Towns have cropped up like Castelo dos Sonhos, or Castle of Dreams, although few dreams have been realised here. Especially for the poor, some of whom have been settled by the government on what are rather grandly called sustainable development projects.
Muito dificultosa aqui.
It's a very difficult life. The government doesn't help us. They have abandoned us here.
Telmo lived in a town on the paved part of the road for 20 years before coming here in the hope of finding land. He is waiting for the government to give him this plot and achieve his dream. Here he survives with no money, no water or electricity. So for him, paving the road is a matter of life and death.
The road will change things for us 100%. Here, if someone gets ill and there is no one around to help, that person will die right here.
To President Lula, solving the social problem here is as important as the environmental problem. He has promised the poor land and support, even though, as I saw, nothing has yet been delivered. 100 miles further north is Novo Progresso, one of the fastest growing cattle centres in South America. Lula has promised to help the ranchers too.
10 anos atrás, em torno de 50.000 cabeças.
10 years ago we had 50,000 head of cattle. Now we have about 1 million.
He argues that there's plenty of space for both farmers and forest. He claims that only 8% is deforested in this region and that the reserves are enormous.
Nós, por estarmos na Amazônia, que é a área, que é a região.
Why should we in the Amazon, an area of little deforestation, almost completely intact, pay such a high price just because other states in Brazil, and certainly England, destroyed their forest? What we want is the right to have a little space to work and produce.
Ranchers like José are not the only ones who feel that the behaviour of the developed world is hypocritical. Talk of rainforest campaigns got an angry reaction from one of my fellow passengers.
Quando existe alguns governantes que têm interesse de trazer esse benefício para a sociedade,
when local leaders want to bring benefits to our society, the international organisations, they stand in our way. They put pressure on us. Why don't they come and bring us resources instead and help us develop the region with technology?
And as it started to rain, it soon became all too clear why paving the road is so fundamental. The lorry driver who caused this bottleneck was once stuck like this for 10 days. He told me that in the 8 years he has driven along the road, he has already seen the consequences of human activity.
Everything, from the scenery to the wildlife. You used to see loads of animals on the side of the road. Now you don't see them anymore. If the paving ever happens, the rest of the Amazon could disappear bit by bit. With the paving, you'll be able to get everything out and it will be totally destroyed.
The last 200 miles took us 26 hours. Now we're going to get the boat. Here I got my first glimpse of the old Amazon. The river Tapajós runs parallel to the last section of the road. The inhabitants here are the caboclos, the descendants of Indians mixed with settlers, whose colonization is much more harmonious with their surroundings. So I'm finally here in Santarém. It's been 73 travel hours since Cuiabá. The next day, I went to a conference about the future of the road. Among the hundreds of delegates was a local congressman who was cautiously optimistic about his government's plans.
We have made space for the poor communities, space for the landowners and for the reserves. All that is left is that the state needs to make sure that everyone's interests are met and there is no conflict. Because of Brazil's past mistakes, we are prisoners of an offensive politics by the international environmental lobby. Correcting this and looking to sustainability, we will no longer have to choose between total destruction or total preservation. The future of the Amazon is sustainability.
He makes it sound so straightforward. If only Brazilian history was not so full of false hopes.
The government has been saying it will pave the BR-163 for 30 years and hasn't managed to do it. What we have is a politics of illusion, a politics of dreams. If the government isn't clear, this region is destined for chaos.
There was a lot of talk on the road that attitudes and practices are changing. But a quick look at the Santarém local paper and you wouldn't believe a word of it. On the front page, the discovery of a lot more illegal logging and the arrest for fraud of the ex-secretary of the State Environmental Agency. In Santarém, Cargill, the agribusiness multinational, has built a soya terminal on the banks of the Amazon, gambling that the road will eventually be built. The government is gambling too, that the paved road will not bring destruction, but ordered development. But the stakes could not be higher. If the project is done badly, it will be a social and environmental tragedy. Not just for the Amazon, but for the whole world.